In the past, I used to be a bit nervous about how to receive the praise on stage. Really, everyone's trying to thank the source from which the creativity comes. The way they do that is through you.
I write a lot about live music events. I will die on the hill of the fact that they are not frivolous events. People calling the Oasis reunion biblical.
I am the point in the room, but I'm not special. Like, God is special. The Holy Spirit is special.
I scrolled past Rick Rubin talking to Pharrell. Rick Rubin says, I think there's a reason why some of the best musicians come out for church. And Pharrell's like, oh, yeah, the Holy Spirit. And Rick Rubin's like, exactly.
I've seen some comments from the last weeks of like some fans just like, I can't believe you're saying there's only one God now.
Did any of that feel claustrophobic to you?
If Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, are we just saying all of Buddhism is wrong?
Do you think you would have always called yourself quite a spiritual person? This podcast is supported by Stewardship, helping Christians be the best stewards of the resources that God gives them.
Radical generosity has always been central to the Christian story. Stewardship helps make it part of your everyday life.
For over a century, Stewardship has been working with generous Christians and the ministries they support.
They help you give well and see your generosity make a real difference.
If you want to give generously and wisely, a Stewardship Giving Account makes that simple.
You can support over 12,000 registered charities and ministries with ease, and even build a balance to set aside funds for when the right moment or opportunity comes.
Discover more at stewardship.org.uk. Hello and welcome to the Re-Enchanting podcast with me, Belle Tyndall. We are the podcast brought to you by Seen and Unseen, and we like to discuss our favourite topic, re-enchantment, asking whether our world is actually as disenchanted as it thinks it is, and if so, where is it seeking and finding re-enchantment? We do that with a range of guests from all different corners of the cultural landscape, and today we are joined by Nick Mulvey, which is such a treat. Nick Mulvey is the Mercury Prize award-nominated British singer-songwriter whose fifth album, Dark Harvest Part 2, which is his newest album, charts so much of what we love to talk about here at Re-Enchanting. He is in so many ways the ideal guest. I'm so excited about this conversation. We haven't even started it yet, and I already have a feeling an hour isn't going to be enough for it.
That's a good feeling, I guess.
It's a good feeling. It's a bittersweet feeling. There's so much to talk to you about, but our listeners will never forgive me if I don't ask you what you're reading to kick things off.
All right, let's start there.
Yeah.
You put me on the spot. I am reading The Greatest Story Ever Told.
Oh, Bear Grylls.
So Bear Grylls' book. Yeah, I heard about it and I saw it in the airport the other day and I snapped it up and I'm really enjoying it.
It's a beautiful book.
Yeah, like what an interesting guy. Very anointed. And in a way, and I don't mean this as a criticism, but I can kind of feel from the off that he's not a author of fiction. You know, there's something about it which is very easy to read, which is really welcome.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's like when you're reading it, you're like, okay, he's not trying to be like super clever, work on 4 different levels, keep me guessing as a reader, think it's going one way and then it's going another. Like he's laid all those tricks down to just do what it says on the tin, like tell the greatest story ever told.
Exactly. And then of course he is doing it with a real eloquence and with a sense for like what is the important part of the story here. And bringing it to life, you know. So I kind of feel it as a parallel with The Chosen in that like it's bringing me into the human story of around Jesus and around those times and around all those different biblical characters, but bringing them to life.
Yeah, and what he does as well, and The Chosen does this too, is when you're seeing Jesus like through the eyes of the people who walked and talked with him, right? Who like saw him first thing in the morning and last thing at night. There's just something so special then about, and I think it was when the chapter he writes from like Peter's perspective, who he doesn't call Peter, he gives him his Aramaic name, and like the way Peter feels about Jesus, I'm like, oh. I just feel like I need,
Rich.
It's so rich, so poetic, so human. Like he's just in love with this guy, and it's like so simple.
Yeah, I find it all really, really moving, because I think that nuance and depth is so important. Like it can be critical at some moments. There's a lot of teachings you can get just, off the page, or but having that kind of those details, it's all really, really important.
You're so right. We had Beer Grylls on last season of Re-Enchanting, actually chatting about that book. So
amazing.
It's like you knew, Nick. It's like you knew.
It's a little full circle.
It's a little full circle moment. You have just wrapped up a leg of your tour. I just want to know how that's gone.
Thank you. Well, I am pausing at the moment. I'm resting here at home with my kids, and I finished the European tour, the European leg of the Dark Harvest World Tour, and it's been brilliant. It's been really good. Touring takes a lot and gives a lot. It's quite a heightened time. So I felt genuinely exhausted, and I'm really gathering my strength these days, because I go again next week in the North American tour. And I also felt elated and felt very, very happy with this tour, deeply moved by my work and what I'm able to do, and what I feel is happening at the gigs, and I feel really good.
Yeah, I think that's the weird thing about, like, I don't know, would I use the word like vocation? Like when you're doing the work you feel you were made to do, and it feels like it's taking everything from you and giving everything to you at the same time. So you feel like, I'll quite often get to the end of a day and be like, how can I feel so simultaneously drained and filled? Like exhausted and energized in completely equal measure.
Yeah.
There's something about, that feeling of doing the work you feel you were made to do somehow.
I do. I really do. Like, I think that question of purpose is really clarified on tour. It's clarified on a very kind of practical level daily. Like, there's just every day is very focused with, although you've got this kind of constant novelty and variety of different cities. You're in Lisbon and then Madrid the day before and Barcelona the day before. There's a lot of travel. And we went all over Europe. You've also got this like very fixed daily kind of rhythm where you have your morning, and then you load into the venue, and then you've got your sound check, and then exactly when you eat is always 6 p.m. and it's often a faux noodle soup. And you refine it and you kind of chisel it down, and there's never a question of like, what's my purpose, where's my goal, what am I here for? And so then from that surface level, it then deepens down into all of my my purpose is to know God and make him known. And my calling is as a musician, as a father, as a friend, as a son, as all my roles in the world, but that purpose is clear to me and has been clarified in the last few years. And it's such a blessing to be able to really be in that and let it draw me forwards.
I don't know if you feel this. So I'm a writer, like by trade, and so it's kind of in many ways what I do is nothing like you, like nowhere near as glamorous or creative. But I don't know if you can relate to this feeling of like you'll do something, you'll create something, and have to trust that will go into rooms that you physically never will, and that will have an impact that you will never see with your eyes. So it's like this tour must be such a weirdly satisfying thing as well, because you're getting glimpses of the rooms that your work has gone into that you had no idea about.
Do you ever do like a book tour where you might read chapters of it, or do you ever get face to face with them?
Not yet. My first book is out next year, so I'm hoping that will be a fun experience. But because there must be something so like, I want to know what you think, I want to know what it's doing, but also is there an element of terror where you're like, actually, I just put that into the world and now the world is coming back to me and going to tell me what they think of it?
Yeah, there's the whole range.
Sure.
Fundamentally it's great in the way that you think it is, in that like I get to be face to face in a room with my audience, and it's brilliant. Like, they've all been looking forward to this moment, and they've sacrificed whatever they have in time and money to get there, and it's rich. It's really energized, and I get all this confirmation and feedback and exchange, and it's lifeblood to me in many ways. And although we do have a constant flow of exchange in a way with social media, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And even with social media, where I get messages all the time, it's very easy to not tangibly understand what my music is doing for people and in their worlds and in their lives. And I actually have to make it a conscious practice to kind of like meditate on that or receive it. And otherwise, like, it's very easy as a creative to just kind of become a bit isolated or disconnected from how the work's being received,
Yeah. Can I ask you, so I write a lot about live music events because I'm just struck, I just like will die on the hill of the fact that they are not frivolous events in any kind of way. Like, they're deep glimpses into some of our deeper stuff, I think. So like, whether that's like people calling the Oasis reunion biblical, or whether that's people rocking up to Islington Hall to watch Jack White and then all coming out weirdly saying it was a spiritual experience. I don't know. Like, like so much happens. Like, there's something so unique about those moments, whether it's like the fact that people feel like they belong to each other, if only for that night, because they're experiencing this shared thing, or whether it's that like vulnerability of people comes out on display when they're singing song lyrics and that they would never say. Or just the awe and wonder of it. I don't know. I think it's maybe a bit of everything and then a bit of some other stuff as well. But as the person on the stage, Nick, like, what do you feel in those rooms, in those moments?
So many things. I mean, the stage is a kind of heightened space where all of the stuff that life is made of, it's all present, self, other, kind of surrendering or not. It's often filled with both. You're kind of holding on, resistance, surrender. All of these fundamentals are there, and it's a very intensified sight and version of them. So I go through the whole range. Like, although I can tell myself that this is my audience and they've all paid to be there, and like that obviously that does mean a lot, and it means you're starting from a point of connection already, as compared to, say, like when you're a support act and you're going out and or you go on a festival stage and you're like, well, I don't actually know if this is entirely my crowd. Even though I know I'm walking into a room with 1,000 fans who are fans, there's still a lot of nerves and a lot of process, because it's like, well, are we gonna connect tonight? And are we gonna, I know what it's like to just for the Holy Spirit to drop in, for me to be liberated and free to play, free. I'm a worker amongst workers in a way. Like, I am the point in the room, but I'm not special. Like, God is special. The Holy Spirit is special. That is, that is what is special, and that is what's lifting up. Now, I understand that, like, a lot of people, in order for this dynamic to work, they need to focus on me, and I'm this point person. But I'm in no doubt an illusion as to, I'm the waiter, not the chef.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I can allow. And then I found in the past I used to be a bit nervous about, or just a bit like unclear as to how to receive the praise on stage. I was a bit like, I loved it, but I also was like unworthy of it. I didn't feel worthy of it, and I would be caught in the middle. And then a friend said, yeah, listen, a friend actually who used to be a member of Faithless, Jamie Cato, and he's toured globally a lot, and he said to me, I was able to take this question to him, and I knew that he'd understand it, and he had his own struggle with that, as I think most performers do. And he said, I've got the answer for you, and he said, really, everyone's trying to thank our maker. They're trying to thank the source from which the creativity comes. And in this dynamic, the way that they access that, the way they do that, is through you. So becoming clear about that dynamic is how you become free to receive the praise. So it's like, oh, he told me, remember on whose behalf you're receiving the praise. So I do receive the praise, but I know it's really for God. So then it's like, cool, let's thank God, like through me, okay, let's all thank God. And then he said, let them cover you in ice cream, or however he put it. It was like, you can really let it flow. So, and it's a very long answer, but if I continue into another thought that's very fresh for me from this tour, I've been really enjoying learning about David. I feel very drawn towards the character of David in the Bible, and
songwriter makes sense. Yeah,
that's that basic part. I think it's literally as simple as that.
I don't know. Have you got any shepherdy instincts? A different career path?
I don't know. Like I can't really say it on the surface level. I do, sheep and fields and whatnot. But
Sheep and Songs. That was David's
and
gig.
I was learning about him and listening to this podcast, and these people were talking about something that really caught my ears. They said, when you go out on stage and you are seeking the approval of the crowd, it's a very different and indeed weaker position than coming out standing fully already in the acceptance already given by my Heavenly Father, so that I'm already accepted, and then I go out on stage no longer in need, but I can do the opposite. I can give acceptance. That really resonated with me, and I went out on stage that night. I think it was in Helsinki, and I was able just to immediately notice with a finer presence, like all the ways in which I was absolutely like looking at their faces in the crowd in the first song, trying to see if they're trying to read their expressions, trying to see if they're loving it, and and I was noticing I was doing that, like a fair bit actually, like needing their acceptance, trying to see if it was all, if they were loving it. And I was able then to start over consecutive nights as I went then down into Warsaw and then Budapest and Prague and everything, like each night peeling like noticing that and bringing it back to, this is for you, God, and being able to then close my eyes and then noticing how much better everything improves when for me, it's an audience of one. I'm just singing to God and everybody gets to witness that. And then it all starts to have the right dynamic somehow.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Thinking about the praise thing you were saying, an author that I love, her name's Alicia Bricciole, and she talks in her book, Season of Decrease, I think it's called. And she talks about this idea of like, you don't need to shirk praise, you can accept it. So she paints this like weird picture, but she's like, accept every flower of praise that comes your way, and then at the end of the day present that bouquet to God.
Yeah.
Which is such a lovely weird picture of being like, okay, I will take that, like thank you, and I will hold it until it gets to the person that's actually intended for. And because I think about this all the time, I think about this idea of like attention, and like, is it okay when your career or the things you make or the things you want to do, or just even in everyday life that gets you attention, like, is that okay? And I've been really wrestling with this recently and been going to again, like biblical characters are just so helpful for like case studies and role models for this type of thing, like, because there's nothing new under the sun, right? So I looked at John the Baptist quite a lot because he's weird. Like, he garnered so much attention for himself. He was notorious in his community, and there was no part of him that was like shaking that. But there was a part of him that, exactly like you're saying, he was like, I'm happy to point to myself because I know that I will be actually pointing through myself. Like, if you gaze at me for long enough, you will gaze at the one who made me and the one in whom I'm doing everything I'm doing. So like, yeah, look at me, because I know that I'm not the biggest thing in my own self-portrait. Do you know what I mean? And so I've been like, yeah. And so that's so interesting to hear you say, because I think false modesty and things like that probably isn't the most helpful way. It's about going with a full cup, like exactly like you're saying, so that then you're just tipping over into the people you're serving with your art.
Yeah, I feel like a beginner. I'm very interested, obviously, in all these questions, and I share them. It's really tricky territory because praise feels great, and I'm very, culturally conditioned towards it, and like
like a magpie, right? Like spotting silver.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I've kind of got it all sussed. Like I can share my insights I've had on tour, but I also want to, be clear in a conversation like this that, like, I don't have it all sussed. Like I'm very much like susceptible to those things. I pray to be free of them, and I think I was listening to a long podcast with Dallas Jenkins, which the maker of The Chosen, and I want to revisit it actually because this isn't a very great point because I can't recall exactly what he said, which is the juice. But I just remember he's been through a really big journey, obviously,
sure,
and he was so collected on this point around the complexities. Because I've just called out one part, which is praise there, but there is even more complexities to it, and it is quite an achievement to be totally. I mean, I guess it's not a perfection thing. We're not supposed to be suddenly not human and perfectly, clear and clean in these territories. But I just remember he had real interesting depth, kind of understanding of this territory. But yeah, it's all juicy stuff for sure.
It's juicy stuff. And I reckon, you say like, I haven't got any of this figured out. I think just I would beware of anyone who said they did, to be honest. So you're the exact type of person I want to hear from. I want to hear from other people who are in the process of figuring out.
Yeah, well, like the process is so important, and it's really important as we present to the world, so through podcasts or through social media, like both, the window is limited, like, because even if it's an hour conversation, it's still, it's a bit more than headlines and sound bites, definitely, but it is a limited window. And then with social media, even more so, it just becomes these clips. And on the eve of launching my latest record, this one, Dark Harvest Part 2, which was just, a week or 10 days ago or something, I'd just done the last show in Lisbon. And so we went out for some drinks and to celebrate the end of the tour and celebrate the album. And I met with a friend of a friend there. I'd never met him before, but he was a really struggling Christian, or a Christian who was really struggling. And we were out on the streets in Lisbon, in these cobbled streets, and I was fairly tired from the tour, but it was a good moment. And we got chatting, and we dropped in, actually. We went quite deep, and he just really shared like how inconclusive everything was, how kind of unsoundbitey, and how many questions he had, how difficult it all was. And I just really felt God's presence in this conversation. I felt God winking at me because I was at this point where I've been delivering a lot of work, creating a lot of content for social media, which is all, as I say, like 20 seconds, 1 minute, 1 minute max. And there's such a kind of like set of conditions that encourage. And I also, the other part of it is that I want to be, broadcasting Jesus's grace. We all want to be like, showered in grace and graceful. And sometimes in a conversation like this, I might share all of my like sort of, insights and gems from the stage. And I just want to make that point at the top of this conversation about how that's only a part of it, and how so much of the process is more like that friend in Lisbon that night, where it was so timely and good for me just to have this conversation with someone. I didn't have many answers for him, but I just sat with him in those questions and went, do you know what? Me too. I've got all of this insight, clarity, but I've also got tons of doubt and process and
that's so good. We're going to get into Dark Harvest, but in a way it tells the story that I also want to pull out from you. So I reckon if it's okay with you, as we go through your story, like there are lyrics from your songs and things that I would love to pull in. But I guess my first question for you is, do you think you would have always called yourself quite a spiritual person?
I think so, yeah. I think so. Like when I was young and growing up in a household that was, I guess you'd call it secular, although there was a lot of culture in the house, and there was a lot of science and arts, and my parents really encouraged us to be very curious. So there was also, there'd be a lot of, in a way, there's a lot of religion that comes to that, because you'd have Bach playing on the radio or something, and that's just that is so Christic in its architecture. It's everywhere. Or my dad was interested in Buddhism when I was a teenager, so there'd be books around mindfulness, meditation. So that was all there. And when I was younger, like a kid, I think I called it philosophy. I was interested in, and my dad would encourage that. But then by the time I was a teenager and I started getting really into art and musicians and music, I started to kind of feel, I think it's a spirituality. And then that grew into being a seeker in my 20s, and a lot of, a lot of other layers to it. But yes, I have.
Yeah. Because so Dark Harvest, part 1 came out earlier this year, part 2 very recent. As we're recording this, it's literally 2 weeks old.
That's right, yeah. 2 weeks today. Yeah.
2 weeks today as we're recording this. And it's so rich and deep of an album, and so I'm just going to keep pulling like songs in because I want to ask you about the lyrics.
Right, I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh really? I was like, will that be annoying? Because you're like, listen, the lyrics are for you to decipher, but I just want, because like this so well. Firstly, actually, let me start in a different place. Like Dark Harvest, particularly part 2, which is what I've been listening to for the past 2 weeks. Is so unique. It feels really rare. It feels like you're doing a very rare thing in that in parts of it you're like singing to God, but then you're putting layers of like, well, this song could be to God, or it could be to like the love of your life, and then in some parts you're explaining what's happening within you, and then in other parts you're kind of asking questions about what's happening within you. It's part prayer, part explanation, and the other really interesting thing that you do is like sometimes it's like the language is so poetic and universal, and then other times you're just throwing Jesus' name in there and you're like, whoa. And all of that feels so, I don't know, I don't think I've ever heard that done before. And that might be my ignorance. I'm thinking maybe of like Nick Cave's Wild God, but still I don't think that quite touches what you're doing with Dark Harvest. And so my first curiosity is like, did you have any inspiration? Have you heard this done before? Or was this like a brainchild, all of your own making?
Nice question. Thank you. It's really interesting to reflect on the work and talk about it with you, because I don't think it's a conscious. This is just the way the art comes for me, you might say, if I'm going to put it in a really simple sentence. Obviously, there is a mix of my own intention. I am like, this is my this is my 5th album, part 2. So I've been doing it for a minute, and I have intentions with the work, and also prior to any intentions, my whole artistic process is all about being a kind of space wherein the Holy Spirit might flow. That's how I put it these days. And I've always had a real sort of familiarity or ease with that position, because ever since I was a kid, I'd just pick up the guitar, I'd sit at the piano with the sustain pedal on, and I'd just kind of like flow, just get lost in it. And it's a very feeling led, intuitive process. And then at the guitar, that's what it is. It's where it all begins. And I kind of like let it be a river that I ride on. And so then at the end of it, when I get to these conversations, I can look at all the work and go, well, yeah, there's all these layers, because also reality and existence is all these layers. Like it's all one in God, and it's also diverse in form. And so the music's kind of got all those layers as well. And whether, as to your question about was that all intentional, and do I hear it elsewhere? Like, I think I do. I think like these are hallmarks of creativity, aren't they? Be that creation as in the creation and nature or the world, or creativity. Like, yeah, I think I could say that I do hear it. Like maybe it's hard to know with, let's say, a Paul Simon or a Leonard Cohen. Like,
Sure.
are
Leonard
they
Cohen, yeah, he was the one in my head. I was like, maybe, but obviously he's not Christian, he's Jewish, so like unlikely to find a Jesus thrown in there. But
That's an interesting question. I'd like to explore that more about where Leonard Cohen sat with Jesus, because
yeah, sure.
the Old Testament, of course, is all pointing to Jesus. I mean, I guess depending on your view, maybe Jews specifically don't think that. I'm not so sure about that, but I feel a lot of grace. Let's put it that way in Leonard Cohen.
Oh yeah,
that would be no new news there from me.
Yeah, it drips with mercy. His music, doesn't it?
Exactly. He's such an inspiration to me. And the older I get, the
Yeah.
more it's like, I want Leonard. Like, no, and even on social media, like a little clip goes by, and it's like I've seen a lot, and I just pause at this clip, and then it's so good what he says, and
Yeah.
you see it, like you see the pleasure on his face as he forms an idea, because it was new to him as well as he said it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll never scroll past a Leonard. I'll never scroll past a Paul Simon. You're right. I hadn't thought of Paul Simon. I think he's a great example of what you're
They're all
saying.
different. They're all different. They're all absolutely my heroes. Nick Cave is another excellent one to say.
Yeah.
And I think my music is then, obviously this is just almost a mute point, but it's just my sort of expression. It's my melting pot of all these different things that go in. So
yeah,
I don't know if I've answered your question.
You have absolutely answered my question. Yeah, no, you really have. I found it. Again, speaking about sort of clips on social media, I scrolled past Rick Rubin talking to Pharrell recently, and I was so intrigued by the clip. I watched the whole interview, and they spend like 5 minutes. So Rick Rubin says, "Oh, I think there's a reason why some of the best musicians come out of the church," and Pharrell's like, "Oh, yeah, the Holy Spirit, sure, yeah." And Rick Rubin's like, "Exactly." And I was like, this is so interesting. I feel like 5 years ago, I would not have heard like two of the most sort of influential names of music be like, oh, of course, yeah, Holy Spirit. And so it's so matter of factly, like, music is a spiritual thing. Writing is a spiritual thing. Yeah, done. And I don't know where they both sit, like, personally. I don't know if they're Christians or whatever, but just that absolute. And it sounds like you kind of feel the same. Maybe as musicians, it's just sort of undeniable that there is a kind of, maybe not everyone would use the word spiritual, but there's something about writing music that feels like it sort of transcends you a little bit. Is that right language?
Yeah, it is. And it used to feel like quite kind of like grandiose, or sort of a bit special or something, and actually, like, it's just the basics of the creative process. You kind of know that, like, it's a dance between kind of just the hard graft, the turning up, the chiseling away, and that's more in the human form.
Yeah.
All about, takes a bit of study. You have to develop your skills. You got to like be interested in different forms, and then also then being open to then this flow of something more gracious and higher. And it's just actually like quite real and humble to talk about it that way. And it's not anything too special. I don't think it makes me special. I think God and the Holy Spirit is special.
This episode is brought to you by Stewardship, a Christian charity making generosity simple and intentional.
A Stewardship Giving Account gives you one place to manage all of your giving, regular or one-off, available 24/7.
Discover more at stewardship.org.uk.
In one of your songs, Supernatural Healing, and this kind of circles back to something you were saying just a little bit earlier, before my brain took me down a different road. There's this lovely line where it's there's a refrain like, you won't find water if you're digging in shallow wells, and then right at the end you kind of change the tense a little bit, and you say, I never found water, but I was digging in so many shallow wells. And I would love to ask you about that line. I would love to ask you about those shallow wells you were digging, and what it feels like to not like fit, like what's the feeling of not finding water there? How did you know you weren't finding the water there? Like, what felt like it wasn't being satisfied?
Well, to answer that and work backwards.
Yeah, let's do that.
It was very normal. It's completely normalized in culture to be constantly thirsty, as it were, spiritually thirsty. Like, So I didn't actually think anything was wrong being a seeker of different. We're not really told a lot about the end of the search. We do hear things and we see things, and it often in my life was coming more from those Eastern traditions that would come into culture since the 60s, in the form of talking about enlightenment. And as I said, my dad was reading these books on Buddhism when I was a teenager, and I just really was interested in that.
Yeah.
I mean, in my circles and my friendships and peer groups, like, there would rarely be much conversation about Jesus. And if ever there was, I find it interesting to reflect that I would hear and see, well, there would be reference to basic agreement that he was a great being.
Okay.
Like, no doubt, just a wonderful, and I guess that's the implication there, is in a long lineage of other great human beings, and Jimi Hendrix was great too, etc., etc. And also, I would notice in those conversations that there would be important discussion around all of the crimes and abominations and controlling factors, committed in his name.
Sure.
And all of that colonial and post-colonial conversation, which is all really important. And what there was never, ever, ever any conversation about or awareness about in my peers was the gospel, which I just learned this morning actually translates as the good news. That's what it means, the good news.
Yeah.
So there was such little awareness in amongst my worlds of actually what Jesus is offering, what his life really meant, and his death and his subsequent resurrection, what it all means and what it offers us right now, and what that means to the end of seeking and the end of searching. That, I'll never be able to explain it, but Jesus has done it already, and we can share and partake in that victory with him and live a life partnering with God now in this life now. Now, in terms of, back to your question about shallow wells and thirsty, like, personally, the thirst had to get to the end, beyond that, even that metaphor, into proper dysfunction in my life, actually, and like, which was complex and happening for a few reasons, but underneath it, from my part, was I began to see that my fundamental sort of orientation through the world, like my spirituality, was faulty, was bankrupt, was, there was a cost to all of this seeking and searching, and that cost added up into I wasn't living with integrity, and that was showing up across my life in terms of some of my key relationships and what was happening behind the scenes in my life. And things got to a point that was really, really hard, really bad, and I kind of saw simultaneously, right, this isn't working, and I began to see I have been the captain of my life. That's what my culture and my conditioning tells me to do, is to be the chief of my life, that I should be kind of making all these decisions, and I just saw that, well, that's not working, and I then literally cried out to God, and God took me deeper into this one well, and I found his living water there, and I'm no longer thirsty in the same way. I'm not, sometimes there is thirst, and it's like I'm a beginner.
Oh, there is so much good stuff in that. That leads on to like 18 questions in my head.
Yeah.
But I'm so fascinated by what you just said, because it's been there hidden in plain sight. And I actually think I've been guilty of it and not realized. This idea of, we talk about the seeking a lot, we never talk about the finding. And I think I do that too. So there's this quote that I quote all the time. It's at the beginning of the book that I've been writing for the past year. I put it on the front page and the last page. It's Saint Augustine, and he says, "You have made us, O Lord, for yourself, and so our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you." And the whole book and all of my work has been about trying to show people that restlessness, what it looks like in me, what it might look like in them, what it looks like in culture, what it looks like in society. And I'm realizing now that I'm like, but what does the rest, until I find my rest in you, what does the rest look like in me? What might it look like in them? What could it look like in society? And that's so interesting, because I think that is a learned behavior from the type of spirituality that you're talking about, where the seeking is the goal.
Yeah, it becomes normalized.
Yeah.
You know, I sing in that song you referenced, Supernatural Healing. In the second verse, I say, supernatural healing, fortify my mind. Give me a path, Lord, give me a path. Because are we busy searching in order not to find? Do we keep going? Do we keep going, never to arrive? So I'm talking about that. It's like, yeah. So the chorus of that song is, "You'll never find the water when you're digging in many shallow wells." I never found the water when I was digging in many shallow wells. It's a phrase I heard years ago. I don't actually remember who said it to me, but it stayed in my mind. It was like a seed planted, and I kind of understood it intellectually.
Yep.
At that moment in my mid-20s, it was like, right, you'll never you find water by digging deeper into one well. But although I grasped it intellectually at the time, I think I still needed, well, I did evidently need about 12, 13 more years of like loads of shallow well digging. And I say to my audience, I'm like, I kind of play with them a little bit in the crowd. I'm like, I think there are some shallow well diggers here tonight. And everyone kind of goes like, yeah, like, you know, and I'm talking about, you know, different methods and modality of spiritual seeking from the East, you know, and beautiful traditions. I'm not dismissing any of it, but as a in my personal experience, nothing compares to salvation with Jesus, who's already done it, so we can tap into the to the completed to the end of the search. And then there's interest in meditation, Buddhism, different things from the East, non-duality. Also dovetails very sort of, I can see how it dovetails with psychedelics and then plant medicines from South America and that indigenous earthed wisdoms, and they all have a place, but there's a lot of problems when they're not submitted to Christ.
When the search is the God, right? The seeking is the God. You're worshipping the seek.
Well, what happens as well is, and this is what I noticed in my desperation, was when I cried out to God, I saw that as long as I've got this kind of like spiritual seeking in all these different places, I remain the chief of the search. I remain the kind of highest element in this system, because
you're piecing it all together and you're choosing what works, and then I'll take this bit and
like I'll select this bit and that bit, as if, you know, and therefore like there's not a lot of room for God to move, because I'm in charge of the spiritual process, and you know, it's really obvious when I saw it, but it actually remained hidden for 10 plus years until I got to the point where everything was I couldn't go any further in that way because things were really hard. I heard someone say it's like asking the thief to lead the investigation into the crime. You know, it's like putting yourself, the ego, the self, in charge of the spiritual search. There'll be a lot of effort, there'll be loads of activity, but there won't be many conclusive results, so there won't be an end to the to the inquiry, you know. So that's the whole point of getting to this place where I cried out to God and I said, God, like, I can't do this anymore, you do it. And it's as if God said, I thought you'd never ask.
Yeah, that's so good. That remind in Every Open Heart, which is a song number 1, you say, and I'm guessing this is a bit of a prayer, like, pick me up when I fall, and I am falling so often. I think that might be my favorite line in the whole album. So much truth in that, and somehow, like you know, you talk about the gospel, the entire gospel in that line. the whole shebang. Like, he does it. We are nothing but like puddles on the floor. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's him. So you're in that line, you're doing two things. Like, you are absolutely smashing apart the notion that we can be the agents of our own salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And you're absolutely pointing towards, you think that someone is the agent of our salvation. Someone does pick us up off the floor. So you're like,
please, I'm
yeah,
begging.
please do it now, and do it again tomorrow, and do it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So somehow that, well, and this is gonna like maybe be embarrassing to say, especially because we've spoken a lot about giving you praise. So I apologize for any spiritual angst I'm about to give
That's
you,
okay.
but I just think that's like, that line is probably like the gospel. Obviously, like, I'm literally a professional Christian writer, so I think about it a lot, and that line might be the one that's hit me hardest in years.
Beautiful.
I think the articulation of it.
You know, I can receive that praise because of what we talked about earlier on behalf of
Sure.
God. But I can go one step further,
Yeah.
I must and I will, which is that actually I collaborated with that song as well, with a friend called Cody, Sister Cody, who's a really interesting artist, and that's his gem. Like, you know, there was a flow of lines there, and
Yeah.
he wrote, "Please pick me up when I've fallen so often," and it all got woven into every open heart, and I immediately loved it, and I love to sing it, because it's just true. It's like, I'm very fallible as a human, and I can't save myself, and I know one who can, and it's obvious that, but it's worth saying it because, you know, as kind of much as it makes me cringe, I sometimes listen back to earlier songs I've written, and subtly I'm enjoying the position of like imparting some wisdom. I'm thinking about the second track on my previous record, so that's going back to New Mythology in 2022, and it's a song that I do love. It's called Star Nation, but I wouldn't write it now.
Okay.
That was me back then, and my life is very humbling, and you know, sort of deconstructed me in a way that, you know, and I know I needed help from God, and I was still kind of riding high on yeah, I didn't know I needed God back in those days, and I loved the ideas, and I loved God's creation, and I just loved wisdom and putting it all together. So I'm sitting there in this song, and I sing the song Star Nation has this kind of state of play, like, and I sing, "The time of the lone wolf is done. Come in, gentle fire, find the sun." It's like, okay, I don't dismiss that now, but I wouldn't. There is hubris in that. I wouldn't stand up on my own stage and my platforms and try and like describe this world in the same ways. Now I'm a bit more like, just, Lord, help me get through this day. You know?
Yeah, that reminds me, I read Nick Cave has his Red Hand files,
Love
and
those.
I recommend them to anyone. Someone, and I wish I could remember the precise word they used, but someone said like, "What's the worst line you've ever written?" But it wasn't worst. It might have been like, "What's the most obnoxious line you've ever written?" or something. And he pointed back to the line in "Into My Arms." I don't believe in an interventionist God.
Did he?
Yeah, because of course now he's like got an album out called Wild God, which is literally like about a complex but most definitely interventionist in some kind of way God. And I just think it's so
Wow.
I'm sure he would understand like exactly what you mean, as do I, but I do also think there's something so generous about you having your whole journey like documented. You know what I mean? I think there's something so special about Nick Cave having written that line in the 90s and having written Wild God last year. I think there's something so special and so testimonial about you having written that song back then and having written, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
in a weird way, that's a gift. But I totally get what you mean. This is just me being curious, because like you were digging so many shallow wells, and like I really think that one of the values placed on so much spirituality these days is like it's wide nature, like anything goes. Try a bit of this, try a bit of that. Like all is all. The universe is the biggest thing you can imagine. So let's just call that the source. Do you know what I mean? Like it's all about it being wide and expansive and big. So was there any part of you that found Jesus, the specificity of him, the fact that he calls himself the narrow way, does any of that feel claustrophobic to you?
Oh, it's one of the main questions, I live with.
Okay.
To be specific with your words, does it feel claustrophobic? There's like the peace of Jesus is anything but claustrophobic.
Yeah,
I say that right from the off. It's the opposite. It's the end of seeking, and it is literally that peace and kindness, immeasurable kindness. And when it's allowed to, it permeates all aspects of my life and my relationships and my kids. It's just like I'm on my knees in gratitude. Now, from the moment that I personally came to the realization of a fullness of a life lived in Jesus, right on the heels of that, that night, the next day, like literally was all these questions of like, well, if Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and none shall know the Father but through him, then like, are we just saying all of Buddhism is wrong? Are we just saying all of those luminous and like, to me, clearly godly people in indigenous Peru, are they wrong? Like, and I think I can just share my question right now. Like, I think that's the most valuable thing.
Yeah, please.
Because I think intellectually I can't accept that all those other ways to God are just suddenly wrong now. It would be completely natural to me in the past and obvious, and still is to loads of my friends and my peers, that there are many doorways into the same room. There are many pathways to God, I think, and that obviously is much more comfortable within culture and comfortable within how we operate in the world, and that's for legitimate reasons. I want to have respect for other people, and like literally, the food and the ingredients is very different from Sweden to southern India. So is the weaving, so is the music. So of course the forms of worship must be all different. So intellectually there I am, but my experience, however, goes against that. And like I say, nothing compares to what Jesus offers. And Jesus doesn't offer us a religion, actually. He offers us himself.
Yes.
And I find myself stopping in my tracks going like, well, maybe I have to listen really carefully to what those people who say this sentence that it would be abhorrent to me in the past about this one way thing. I can just kind of waffle on, like I don't know what to say.
No, that's really valuable. Yeah, that's really valuable because that's what I'm interested in, right? So I write a lot to, for, and about people who call themselves spiritual but not religious, and the idea, who want transcendence and want, many use psychedelics in order to break out of confines. So then religion feels like a confine. Do you know what I mean? And they're like, I actively find spirituality when I'm breaking down the barriers, the binaries, So I just find it really interesting when people come to Christianity from that way, when they come to the person of Jesus, like who has a name and do you know what I mean? Like has a name, had all of that specificness about him, who has a name, who has an identity, who has a story attached to, who said things. And I find it fascinating when people do that, because I appreciate with my whole heart what they have had to the wrestling they have had to do to relax into Jesus. If that makes any sense to you.
It makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate that. And Yeah, there's so much to say about it, you know. I only realize in these recent times of my life how counterculture Jesus and being a Christian is, because you kind of inherit it through culture and through colonialism and everything as being like the authority, the worldly structure, the worldly authority.
Sure, like the given.
But actually, like Jesus and Jesus and his followers have always been the counterculture, and still are incredibly persecuted around the world. Um, I mean, in terms of that question about structure and freedom, I heard something beautiful recently, which has just really charmed me. It was from a poet from Bangladesh called Rabindranath Tagore, who's quite a famous name famous poet from Bangladesh, and he said about freedom. He said, imagine a table, and there's a guitar string on the table. Okay. And imagine you took one end of that guitar string and you twisted it in your fingers like this. Well, now that guitar string, you can imagine it would twist on the table in the flat surface, kind of expressing its available range, let's say. As you twisted it from one end, it would kind of go, and then if you're watching this, you can see my arm kind of like twizzling, I guess is the English.
Twizzling is a great verb,
And I'm
yeah.
like reading this quote here, going, okay, yeah, where are you getting to here? And he said, but of course, like a guitar string on a table, expressing its full range of motion is pointless. Like, what's a guitar string on a table? He said, the guitar string won't reach its potential. It won't sing until it's fixed in an instrument. And here I was like, cool, you have my attention, you know. It won't. And I live in Ibiza, right, which is a very permissive culture with a lot of new age spiritual seeking here, like is the kind of almost the dominant kind of culture here. And it's no doubt played a role in fast tracking me to the end of it, because I got sick to the back teeth of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
I could
Sure.
see so clearly that it was like very wealthy, and it was all about how comfortable can we be. And it's actually the Christians who are manning the food banks down in Ibiza town who are actually, it's very, I've got a lot of issues with new age seeking, but there's every method and modality you can try here. You can express your freedom in polyamory, different plant medicines, in all these sorts of different ways of expressing your freedom. But what's the point? It's about as pointless as a guitar string on a table. And I've chosen to actively, I've seen the wisdom of fixing myself in an instrument, and that instrument is Christ and his path as a Christian, because I won't fulfill my destiny any other way. Like I sing this way.
Yeah, that is a beautiful image. And there's something about the feeling of being a stretched string as well, you know, like a string that's pulled taut.
Well, it is fixed in an instrument. Like it's
Yeah.
not what I want. It's not. I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
It's just maturity and seeing the wisdom of like, okay, well, when I do have everything I want, that's a road to hell. All my pleasures and desires fulfilled, and and yeah, it is fixed in an instrument. It is uncomfortable at certain moments, but it is also like, for me now at this stage, it's easy to see that it does fulfill me more. But yeah, no, I love what you're saying then about that, journey from, or speaking to people as you do who are spiritual but not religious, and getting from that broad spirituality into the path of Jesus. And I just think there's so much to say about that, but one really important area, and we're going to need like a whole other podcast or other hour. These are all big themes, but like, is I find the path with Jesus has in my experience, what's the word I'm looking for? It has a superior capacity to really approach spiritual warfare and this whole side of it. And that actually through this character called the devil, which I always used to dismiss as cartoonish and just like, people would sound bonkers if they talked about Satan. But it is actually a really important part to discuss, and it has a role here in this conversation because if basically what Jesus offers us is so stunning that there is powerful and tricky sources that are resistant to it. This is new terrain here for me to kind of speak it, and there's a lot of taboo culturally, so I find it like quite something to formulate these words even, but like there's a lot. When I began to kind of realize, like as I said, because I did that spiritual seeking, you know, a lot, and I looked at my life and I went like, it doesn't work, and worse than that, it's not good. And then at the same time, I had a certain few friends who had what I was looking for. They had intimacy with the actual creator on a daily down to earth basis. And the way they had that was through the Son, through Jesus. They knew the Father, and they had peace, a robust peace. And I was at this point in 2023 and I was able to look at it. And then I sought conversations with those people because I respected them and I was like interested in it. And those conversations started to open up my eyes to what Jesus offers. And I looked between those two worlds there, like what was falling apart in my life and what I was seeing with Jesus. And I went like, oh, wow, like the enemy is moving hard against this teaching for Jesus because this is the only way that the enemy can actually maintain its existence is if we are tricked into thinking that the victory's not already been won. And that's the whole thing. That is the gospel. The victory has already won. Jesus has defeated evil. And that keeps, and so, yeah, like it's a bit of a rambling point, this one, but I think it's useful, it's important for me to explore articulating it. And it's about how, you know, the Satan doesn't mind if we miss the mark by a millimeter. Like if we're really aiming for the truth and we are well intended, we're good people and we look like good people and we are often good people and we're aiming for the truth, but we just miss it by a millimeter, that's equally as good a result as if we were going 180 degrees away from truth and being some satanic death worshipper.
That's interesting.
We just need to not hit the truth. And what Jesus offers us is, like I say, I believe incomparably different to other paths. So
it sounds like the cosmology, right, of like the Christian story feels like you in it, however specific, and that comes with all kinds of vulnerabilities and discomfort. It makes you feel like a guitar string that is stretched to breaking, you know, like it feels like in that you've found something that makes sense of you, that makes sense of the world. Do you know, like, I found a story that works, a story that makes emotional and every other kind of sense,
and a fundamental surrender in it as well. You know, it's like it's given me what I need to fix into so that then God can work more.
Oh, I see. I knew it. Didn't I predict it? An hour has not been enough because there are
so
many.
One more question that I don't know how long you go.
Right. What am I going to go for? I want to ask you about For Real because that feels like the musical. It feels like, and I could be wrong, it feels like it's this story, but in song. I also, there's a line that I find really intriguing in East of Eden, where you say, I don't mean to scare you, but I've had a change of heart. And so I find that really interesting because I want to know who that, like, how people have responded to you and things like that. I also want to know about this line in Every Open Heart where you say, allow me to know you and know you in answers that dazzle my doubts and surprise me with chances.
Well, I like all of them and we'll give short answers, right? Like,
go on, give me a quick fire for those three songs.
All right, so allow me to know you and know you in answers that dazzle my doubts and surprise me with chances. It is what it is. I don't know, like I love that line too. I love the allow me to know you and know you in answers. Like when I sing that, who knows, come allow me to know you and know you in answers that dazzle my doubts. I had this kind of cringe as I wrote it, being like, I don't think that's a great lyric, but I'm going to put it in there anyway.
I appreciate the alliteration of it. And also, I think what I love about that line is kind of what you're saying, like that the joy is in knowing. So the joy is in the answer, not the question. Sometimes the joy is in what is found, not what is still being sought for, you know, and that there is exploration and adventure in the being found.
Yeah, totally. I was interested in prayer at that point.
Yeah.
And I kept this little book. Wherever I met someone who I felt had a good prayer practice, I just quizzed them. I was like, it was 2022, I think, 23. And I had some situations in my life that were clear to me that I couldn't control them. I couldn't influence them myself. So I had to move back beyond the world and these actual dynamics and into, I was like, oh, I need to pray about this. That's what I need to do. So then that prompted, well, how is my prayer life? And I found it a bit lacking, a bit wanting. I was like, yeah. And I found that the answer is it's all about knowing who you're praying to.
Yeah, there's that C.S. Lewis quote, isn't there? Like, let it be the real you that I speak to and let it be the real me that speaks.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But I was a bit of a boff in that month, and I was like, I really want to crack this prayer thing. And I just asked people, and I kept all these notes. And then I went into the studio at the end of the month, and I had this song coming through, which became Every Open Heart. And we had the chorus, and my producer said, listen, go home to your hotel and write the verses tonight.
No pressure.
I opened up my prayer book. Well, I opened up my notebook, and inside it was all the only stuff I had to work with was all these different notes I'd made about prayer, and I'd asked friends. And so then it all just flowed into Every Open Heart. East of Eden, you asked me about.
Yeah, okay. Let's end there, because I really better let you get on with your day. Where you say, I don't mean to scare you, but I've had a change of heart. And so I guess to wrap this up, like, is that to your audience? Is that to people you love? Is that to people listening to this podcast?
It's all of it. Yeah, no, it's all of it. It's to my audience, and it's to close friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and family. Like, it's like, because of the reasons we talked about before, it's quite strange,
Yeah.
and at best, and maybe even frightening, perhaps, for certain people near me to see this kind of change of like, wait. Even if I've seen some comments from the last weeks of like some fans just like, I can't believe you're saying there's only one God now, and I just want to exhibit, all the time through this process, and then specifically in that song as well, just to really say, I don't want to scare you, but I won't deny. But watch me, I won't deny this change of heart, like this change of mind.
And there's such a generosity in that song, where you say, I'll leave the light on for you. Like, I'm not hiding myself away from you. There's no sense that you're being all kind of reclusive and exclusive with this. It's particularly in that song where you're like, let me tell you, like, let it flow and come with me.
It's fellowship. Yeah.
Sure. So beautiful. And then, yeah, for real, just feels like it encapsulates maybe everything we've spoken about. Do you think?
I'm really proud of For Real.
You should be.
It's special. And for a long time, I'd wanted to write music with less lyrics in it. Like, not so much verses and choruses and lots of lines, but almost more like the dance music I grew up with, where you just got just the right amount of essentialized lines. And I looked, for some reason I saw on the page the Spanish verb balanzar, and it might have been a dictionary because it had the definition underneath it. And I remember just thinking, well, that means balance, so I don't need to read that. But I did catch it anyway, and I noticed that the Spanish verb balanzar doesn't mean to balance, it means to wobble. And then this insight just popped into my mind. I was like, well, that's so true to life, is that balancing isn't some fixed, perfect 0 point thing. But the truth is, like, finding a balance is a dynamic thing, is a constant wobble, is imperfect. And
That's
it just
true.
seems so nice. I really like that. And it stayed with me. And then I wrote this song literally as in the first months after coming to Jesus, and my life clicking back on track. And I just could never write lines like balance because we're perfect, or I couldn't be in that posture of like, a bit like I was in that Star Nation song, a bit more like, I don't know, a bit full of myself or something. It's more like honest balance as we fall and sway, make it to another day, keep breathing. It's just really like getting through and being real about how our lives are. Lit up when you call my name, lit up that you feel the same. You are my reason. It's just simple lines, and then I'm here for another day. I live life for real. Save my life today, I give mine to Jesus. Yeah, it's a special song, that one.
Yeah, it really is. It's a special album. I think of, when I was listening to it, I think of Joshua Luke Smith, you know, the poet, the musician, the pastor, the all-around great guy. He talks about poetry as offering words in service of the unsayable. And it feels so much, and again, take hold of this praise for now and then hand it over. It feels so much like that's what this album is. You have offered us words and melody in service of the unsayable, and that's so rich a gift. I'm so grateful for it.
Thank you, Belle.
Thank you, and thank you for this conversation. It has been a joy.